Yay!
Every week, it happens every week. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 129. I'm your host, Ethan Newberry, and I'm joined by...
Kim Tashima Newberry.
And tonight, real fun show. The guest that I have on tonight, I should have had on years ago. She is an incredible athlete, an incredibly talented ultra runner. If you look up at her ultra sign up, her resume, it is essentially first place, second place, first place.
And you just keep scrolling.
You just keep scrolling and you keep scrolling. She's been doing this a long time. She's incredibly tough, a badass athlete, and an incredible runner. It is Angela Shartel. She's a Southern California resident, and recently, this last weekend, days ago, she's basically fresh off the plane, coming back from Canada. She ran FatDog 120 and won, and it's a race that has been in our minds since we first heard about it. We had guests on last year right after the race, and I'm so excited to have Angela on tonight to talk about what it was like to run for the first time, seeing these trails, which he's never run before, and this environment, which we're very close to in the Pacific Northwest up in Canada, but having trained in Southern California and never seeing these Northwest trails and running a 120-mile race, and it's super rugged and difficult. I can't wait to hear her perspective and how it all unfolded this weekend. So we have Angela Shartel on the show tonight, and a big announcement. I'm going to do the announcement later in the show. I think that's how we do it. We bait people to stay for the whole show.
You won't believe what happens.
You won't believe
next.
what happens next. Click the link and join us on BuzzFeed. Get ready for tonight's show. Welcome. Happy Monday, everybody. It's a good one because we have our beers open. Let's get the show on the road. Here we go.
Ginger Runner.
Yay! Happy Ginger Runner Live Monday, everybody. There's already comments in the chat room saying, turn down the brightness on your camera. You're reflecting too much light. I gotta let you know, guys, I'm a ginger. I tend to be transparent most of the time. So what you're seeing now is just, here, let me turn it down. Is that better? Is my skin tone better for you now? That's how I wanted to start the show. Is racism.
Talking about your skin tone.
Yes, talking about my skin tone. Tonight's episode, I am excited to have my guest on tonight because she's just an awesome athlete, incredibly kind, really talented, has been in the ultra running and running game for a long time, and just like a beast when it comes to these races. As I mentioned in the pre-show, her ultra sign-up resume, if you just look at it, you just go, oh yeah, she's good. A lot of first places, a lot of top threes. She's run across the globe. It's pretty awesome. I'm joined by Ms. Angela Shartel. How are you, Ange?
I'm good. A little tired. Feeling good though.
I can imagine you're a little tired. Angela just ran and won the FatDog 120, which is, do they call it the FatDog 100 or the FatDog 120? How do they refer to it up there?
Well, I think that after the end of this year's race, they call it the FatDog 122.
Yeah, it's a 122.
Since they decided to add that on. It made quite a difference and quite an impression on people when they did that a couple days before the race.
Yeah, that was the rumor that was kind of going around, was that they didn't just add a couple miles. They added it like days before the race because an aid station had to move.
Right.
And I know this race to be really remote. What was... First, let's actually go back a little bit before we even talk about FatDog, because I'm really excited about that. You have been ultra running now for a long time. How did you get into the sport? What's kind of your origin story in ultra running?
I always say running found me. I didn't find running. So just the experiences that I had in life led me to a pretty dark place, I guess. I had a lot of adversity that came on me over several years, and I ended up obese. I ended up depressed, anxiety-ridden, and a lot of different medical issues along those lines. And I needed a change. And so what happened was I set out to, a girlfriend of mine strike that. I set out to lose 65 pounds in a year and get my life back on track, because all of these feelings and symptoms I was having, the only thing I could pinpoint that was different in my life is that I didn't exercise or move anymore. So I gave myself a year to lose that much weight, and it was from exactly January 1st to December 31st. And my approach to it was that I'm not going to diet. I'm not going to cut out anything or be extreme in any way. So I decided to go to the gym 3 times a week. And then my doctor told me that, I mean, she said basically it's not rocket science to lose weight. It's calories in, calories out. So if you want to be, say, 130 pounds, then 1,300 calories a day is how you're going to maintain that. If you exercise more, you can eat more. If you eat less, you're going to lose weight. That was kind of a simple formula for me. And I actually don't even know it to be perfectly accurate or not. That's what she told me, and I never really cared enough to look it up. I took it as gold and I went for it. I went to the gym 3 times a week and I ate anything I wanted. So it was pretty quick that I learned that I could reach that calorie count in about 4 hours.
Right.
So after breakfast and a quick snack.
Right.
So that was basically how I learned about calories and nutrition, and I became focused on how am I going to eat as much food as I want all day long and still lose weight and meet this goal. So yeah. So that's sort of the path that took. And I ran, as far as running, I had only run a semester in high school because I was born and raised in Japan. And so it's not like being here in San Diego where, you take off school the afternoon and you go out, you travel to Rancho Bernardo or La Jolla or something for a soccer game or a basketball game. We would take weeks off of school and we would go to Korea or Misawa and it would be a big vacation. So as long as I kept my grades up, I had these opportunities to go all these places. So I wanted to go to Korea because they had a lot of great clothes and knockoff brands. So the cross country team went there. So I joined the cross country team and it was about the worst decision I ever made. I go, oh my God, this one's hard. It's not like, I joined the basketball team and I wasn't really going to play because clearly I didn't have the talent and skill. And I just had to go on the travel team and sit on the bench. But I mean, this is like, oh my God, when is that tree going to get here? I feel like I've been running this way forever. So that was my only experience with cross country. I did it for 1 semester. I went to Korea, bought all the clothes that I wanted, and then I quit that as fast as I could. Yeah. And so put that on the shelf and then bring in all the life experience and several kids later. And then this weight loss thing, I was like, I started, when I finished that year, I fell short of that goal by 5 pounds. And so my friend David actually recently, he said it perfectly this past weekend. He goes, you don't do anything in moderation. So those 5 pounds in my mind was a failure. And I didn't know how to fix that situation. I'm like, I either am going to give up and just sit down and indulge again, or I need to keep moving forward. But I wasn't exactly sure how to move forward. So a girlfriend of mine said, hey, there's this Big Sur marathon or this 21-mile relay. And I did it last year. It's a lot of fun. Why don't you go ahead and do it with me? And it'll be a great time. So I go, okay, I didn't have a better plan at the time. And it sounded like something that's going to keep me going. So I went ahead and said, all right, I started training for this and asked her how to do it. She gave me a grid, how to run a marathon. So I go out and I first started, I wasn't doing any kind of cardio in the gym. I was, aside from like jazzercise classes, I did jazzercise and then like the step up classes and then a little bit of the weight training. So I started running on the treadmill, thought I was going to die. Then once I mastered 3 miles on that, decided to go out in my neighborhood to the trail and ran 3 miles and then knew I was going to die because my lungs were on fire. And I was just like, I don't even know how people do this. This is not even the same as the gym. And just the thing about me is I'm stubborn. So I had this guideline to follow, and I had this 3 miles to do, and then 5 miles and 4 miles, and how the whole grid went. And I just started jogging. Jogging felt better for me than walking. And so about 3 months into it, people are noticing, they're seeing that I'm losing weight, I'm losing more weight, I'm leaning up, I'm obviously training for something. What is it? So I go, it's a 21-mile walk jog. And they're like, a marathon? I go, no, it's a walk jog. And so finally, I had no idea what a marathon was. And I talked to my girlfriend and I go, everybody keeps asking me about the marathon. And I tell them I'm doing the walk jog. What's the marathon? She goes, oh, well, that's 26 miles. I said, are you kidding me right now? I'm busting my tail and I'm 5 miles shy of anything that someone recognizes. I said, we need to do that marathon. Can we do the marathon? And she goes, well, I guess I'm not doing a marathon. And so that's how running started. I went to Big Sur and I ended up in the expo behind closed curtains with the RD going, I'd like to upgrade to the marathon. And he said, you mean downgrade to the half? I go, no, the 26 mile one. And he goes, well, what's your longest training run? I said, it's been 21.5 miles. And I did it 4 weeks ago. And he's like, okay, you're in. And I just thought, oh, that didn't sound reassuring. So I go, he didn't seem very confident and I'm not sure what I'm getting into. So the next day we're on this long bus ride from the finish to the start through the redwoods. And it was just like nothing I ever could have imagined, going through these redwoods. And then with Big Sur, you start on the road and you are coming out of the fog on these hills, and they released doves at the beginning. And I thought, oh my God, this is the best thing I ever could have imagined. Well, at the end, it just hurt like, it hurt like nothing I felt before. But what happened was I ended up finishing in my goal time and then just shy of qualifying for Boston. So when I found that out, then I was like, well, what's Boston? And then I started training for Boston. And then after that and several road marathons, that same girlfriend who introduced me to Big Sur said, hey, why don't you come out on the trails with me? And so I went out with her. Again, sucking wind, rolling ankles, cursing rocks, going, I don't know why anybody would like this. She goes, you know what, just give me 2 weeks, 2 weeks of consistency. And if you don't like it, I'll never invite you again. So I fell in love. And then she found Catalina Marathon, the Catalina Eco Challenge. Mm-hmm. And so I went out there and it was just such a great experience. And when I got there, I saw these people with 50K shirts, 50-mile shirts. And I'm like, how far is the 50K? She's like, 31 miles. I go, 50, what's the 50? Is that 50 miles there? 100 miles? Do people do that? Are you kidding me? She goes, it says a run. I go, we got to check that out. If they can do it, I want to find out about that.
Absolutely.
So that's how I found out about ultras. And then that led me to signing up for my first ultra.
So that's how many years ago was that?
I think my first ultra was Ridgecrest, and it was 2008, December 2008. So that was my first ultra.
That's amazing. And to make that much progress in a fairly short amount of time is amazing. And to be at that level. When did you feel like you had, you have incredible talent. You're incredible winning these races. Some of these are incredibly difficult races. Did it ever, was there a point when you're like, oh, I can actually win these races. I should, I should go for this.
Never.
Does that cross your mind now?
No.
That's amazing.
When I step on the line, what I do is I love the training. I love the family I found, the friends, the long runs, and just that intimacy in those relationships. I think, my dad was in the Navy. He was gone out to sea all the time. My mom had a lot of her own challenges that she was facing, so I never had that closeness. And then moving so often, I didn't form those deep friendships. So ultra running brought me that. When I get on this, but my background brought me kind of low self-esteem, lack of confidence, fears, anxieties. And so even now when I get on the start line, I think through everything and I plan. I go through great lengths to train and plan and come up with goals that I think I can reach, but I'm never quite sure if I can do it. I think there's that kind of the angel and devil on your shoulder, and there's that the realistic side of me that says anything can go wrong in an ultra. You've volunteered for enough of them, you've paced enough of them, you've crewed enough of them. There's only so much you can control, and everything else is just what the day gives you. But the beauty of it is not going into say, I think I can win this race. It's what am I going to learn and how am I going to deal with those things that come my way that I can't control. And I think that's what keeps drawing me back to ultra running and 100-milers in particular, because as much as I've learned, those lessons still sneak up on me, and they snuck up on me this weekend too. It's like, oh, you were going to embrace it. Oh, but I didn't think it was going to be like this. So.
Yeah, we had a friend recently at AC 100 kind of go through a similar thing where they're extremely, they've been doing ultra running for a long time, but there are days when you just don't know what could happen, and you can feel those lows. I'm really curious with a resume like yours. It's incredible. It's so, you are incredibly talented and strong and obviously very good at this sport. FatDog 120 specifically, were you inspired to run this race for a particular reason? Did you have a friend? I know Nicodemus, a friend of yours from San Diego as well, ran it and set the course record last year. I'm just curious if he talked you into it, or had you known about the race? What drew you to such a brutal course out of the country?
It was actually, I had heard about the race, I think in 2013. And it was just a friend of mine who who went up and ran it, and she was talking about it. And I'm always intrigued by a point-to-point course. I'm always intrigued by going somewhere new. I liked all of the diversity that the course offered, and that was what drew me to it. It just didn't fit with my schedule. Like there's things when I sign up to do 100. I have to feel it. I have to be drawn to it. And so it has to have something. And FatDog had something, but there were other things that took a higher precedent before that race. Like, you know, when I found out about Mogollon, and I was like, oh, I love the desert, and that's a point-to-point. And things that just capture you and move you. So that's kind of the order that I do them in. And this year, I really wanted to do FatDog. I wanted that experience, and I felt like it was time.
Was FatDog your A race, or do you go into a year with an A race, or do you kind of juggle races on the fly, or how does that work?
I don't race much. I race only 3, maybe 4 times a year. So I won't say that they're all A races, but I don't typically just go into a race to just run it. I go into to be competitive and see what I'm capable of.
That's refreshing. Obviously, coming from someone who's seasoned just in the ultra scene, has run a number of ultras, just knows. We oftentimes get people who come on and talk about, oh, I'm racing this weekend, and then 3 weeks from now, I'm racing this race and doing that. And I couldn't help get wrapped up in that. In the last couple of years, I've been racing as often as possible, right? You're like, oh, there's a 50K. I really want to do this 50K. And then there's a 50-miler. And it takes its toll. And I think there's a bit of naivety, myself included, in trying to race too much, especially in the sport. So that's refreshing. I think that's great. I want to remind all of our live viewers that if you have a question for Angela during the course of the show, Kim is in the chat room. She's already pulled a couple of questions here. So before we get into what happened at FatDog, let's ask some of the questions from the chat room.
Sure. There's a question from Chris Sorensen. Angela, was there a particular run that you remember where you realized that you were hooked?
I was hooked on running. Wow. Gosh, you know, I have to think about it. Every time that I race, there's some message that I get and something meaningful that happens. Probably one of the very first ones that stands out would be PCT 50, and it's here, you know, out in our local mountains, and that's where I met my friend Tracy Moore while I was racing. And I remember being out there. The course had been redirected because of a helicopter crash from the original PCT course to the San Diego 100 course that year, and it was basically one loop of the San Diego 100 instead of the 2 loops that you would do during the event. And I was out there, and I think I just felt cleansed. I felt like, you know what, this is something I can do. What I get out of this is really directly proportion to what I'm putting in. I can choose to stop working, and then I won't find the lesson. I won't get the most out of the experience that I can, or I could choose to push forward and suffer and embrace the situation and learn from it and take both the good and the bad. And I remember Tracy coming up on me, and I was in a pretty high spot, just mentally running, and he's like, "Hey, how are you?" And I go, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" And he's like, "I'm good. What's your name?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm Angela. How are you? Who are you?" He's like, "I'm Tracy." And he goes, "Is this your first 50?" I go, yeah, this is it. This is so much fun. Look at all the trees. But you know, I've never done anything like this before. And he goes, "Well, you're going at a pretty good clip. You know, you might just want to," he goes, "you might just want to brace yourself and just make sure, you know, you drink enough and eat enough." And he's giving me all these tips. And I just had this peace out there, and I was loving the experience and the free feeling. But after talking to him, though, I thought, wow, that person's just telling me some stuff that can help me and I can learn from. And off he went, and I'm sitting there, or I slow down a bit, and I go, okay, note to self, I think he's experienced. I think I should probably slow down. Maybe he knows something I don't know. And I just started contemplating these lessons and just how they worked into ultra running and how they worked into life, which might sound like a far disconnect, but for me, it's not. It's like being able to scale back and take advice from people and be present in the moment. And I think that all of that came while I was out running. And probably that race is when it came to a head. And I realized, you know, I really like being out here and having these conversations, experiences, thought processes, and such like that.
Real quick question. Do you have a son named Nathan?
I do.
I believe he's in the chat room. There is a Nathan Shartel in the chat room. I'm believing it's your son.
I'm nervous, possibly.
It's okay. It's totally fine. He's just like, she's awesome. She has a room with all of her awards and stuff. It's pretty amazing. But he also asks a question about having a good pacer, and I feel like we're going to get to this because we're going to talk to her a bit about that in the FatDog 120 recap.
Like so Nathan might be getting coached by people in the kitchen.
There's a crew of people in the other room that are probably around a computer, Nathan's computer, and they're probably just like, ask them this. And
just log in with your name. It's okay. Yeah,
it's okay. We'll throw you under the bus. Nathan, log off. Just watch. They're using you, buddy. They're using you. We have more questions. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Kim.
Yeah, there's a great question from Nathaniel in the chat room. Question for Angela. Can you describe your pre-race preparation?
This is perfect. For FatDog 120, let's talk specifically. What was your pre-race preparation like for this race?
So are we talking about like training, days before?
Yeah, let's actually talk a little bit about training. I know you also have that binder. I think that's a perfect example of what you do pre-race.
And maybe like night before, morning of.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Night before, morning. I mean, I don't know that I have anything that's unusual. I don't really work on I don't need to eat a specific meal, carbs or protein or anything like that. I pretty much keep my diet the same that it is always. I mean, with the exception of probably less beer, obviously. but I have a typical dinner. I eat early anyway. So yeah. I eat between like 5 and 6. So I usually keep that the same. FatDog this year, actually, because the race briefing went a little later, I ended up then in Canada, nobody's in a hurry. So it's refreshing.
Yeah.
And relaxing, but you also are going, okay, so I need to make sure I eat and digest and get to sleep. So I ended up eating a little later than usual, but the race doesn't start till 10 o'clock, so it wasn't a big issue. Mostly the couple days before the race, I just focus on hydrating. hydrating and getting electrolytes, and keeping my calorie intake up. So, but as far as preparation,
normally, yeah, you don't eat anything special or anything like that.
No. I mean, I eat a lot of food. So race more, or the day before the race is no different. I pizza, pasta. Before Bear, I ate Indian food. I've had Thai food before the race.
Rolling the dice, Shartel.
I'm like, whatever. It's good. I eat it all the time anyway, all the spicy food. So
that's awesome.
That hasn't really been my problem.
So I guess in this, talking about like training for FatDog, I know the race to be notoriously technical in sections, a lot of climbing, some really tough mountain ridges. If there's weather, you have to deal with that. Last year was obviously terrible. It sounds like this year was the opposite direction.
Absolutely.
Was there anything for this race, maybe compared to other races, that you did differently? Did you find trails that you had to train on specifically for this?
You know, I feel like where I live in San Diego, we back up, my house backs up to Mission Trails Regional Park, and it provides such a wide variety of terrain. I mean, first off, it's blazing hot out there here, and it's completely open and exposed, so the sun's always beating down on you. But it has rolling sections, it has technical rocky sections, it doesn't have altitude. And it doesn't have long climbs or long descents. So I did most of my training out there, and then out in the lagunas and Cuyamacas. I did focus a little bit more on running downhill. I'm not what I would consider a strong downhill runner. I don't feel like I'm fast. I feel like I hesitate on the downhills. So I tried to work a lot more on that and in improving my form and doing a lot of downhill repeats, just to not be afraid of that falling feeling, I guess. And everything what I did when I was researching FatDog and I would just read the race reports and watch the different videos and look at the pictures of the terrain. And a lot of the comments where people blew their quads and they didn't have the downhill running for the finish. And, you know, just like a 100-mile race, the race probably starts around mile 75. You figure in a 120-mile race, the race doesn't start till about 90. So to make sure that you have legs for the last 50K is going to be, you know, it can make a huge difference in your race. And it did in mine.
For sure. Can we see the binder? I'm impressed
by
this.
Here's my FatDog binder.
It's not thin either. It's pretty thick.
This is probably the thickest book, but it also, I've never been to Canada. So I didn't know my way around. I didn't know if there was going to be cell reception. So I printed all of the driving directions, all of the numbers for the hotels and lodging and all of the information that with that, all the plane itinerary for flights, because we flew into Spokane because it started in Cathedral Park, and then we flew out of Seattle because it ended closer, you know, to there. Finishing in Manning. So
I like every time I go to Canada, with or without you, I'm always just, it sucks because your phone essentially goes dark and you realize how much you take for granted.
Unless you want to spend thousands of dollars.
Right, unless you want to, you know, your data plan to go through the roof and double or triple. So having a binder printed with all of the directions you'll need to get to certain places, brilliant preparation in this situation. All right, I'm ready to talk about FatDog, and I know that the live viewers are ready to talk about it as well. How was it? Did it meet expectations? Was it beyond what you thought it was going to be? What were the actually, we'll start with this. What were your biggest fears going into this race? Because I know we talked at AC briefly in the aid station.
And they were my fears. You know, the thing about your biggest fears, when you focus on them so much as I tend to do, they tend not to be an issue.
At all. Yes, completely.
So I don't know if consciously I do that and go, okay, maybe I'll be safe if I freak myself out as much as I can. That will be what I don't see.
Yes.
But so my biggest fear, hands down, bears, grizzly bears in particular, because the minute I read that, I was like Googling grizzly bears, you know, all of how to defend yourself against them, how to spot them, all kinds of things. And I had myself in a circle.
Now, go ahead, Kim.
Did you happen to see the half gnawed off bloody deer leg that my friend posted a photo of?
So it's interesting because that was brought to my attention at the finish line, and no, to answer your question,
Okay.
I did not. And had I seen that, I probably would have just lost my mind.
What I'm wondering, if Ange didn't see it and your friend did see it, did it occur during the race? Did a bear? Well, are you sure it was a deer leg? I hope it wasn't like a runner's leg.
I heard it was a deer leg, and I heard it was really bloody, looked fresh. I'm thinking if I had seen it, the only positive I could bring out of that is that maybe it's not hungry.
Yeah, it's well fed.
Did you carry bear spray with you? Is that part of the pre-race like checklist?
So it's not the mandatory gear, but they did say that if you are afraid of bears, you should carry a whistle, or you should carry the bear bell and or the bear spray. So I went to REI and looked at the bear spray, and when I saw it, it's about the size of the beer Kim's drinking.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
And I'm like, okay, so we need a whole separate strap on the front of our chest, like a gladiator, and then we need to know how to use it. On top of carrying the 8-pound pack of mandatory gear. I'm just gonna look like a dork out there. And then I don't know how to use the bear spray, and I'll probably defeat myself by carrying so much weight I can't run. So I nixed the bear spray. The bell I had heard was not, well, recently, right before I went to, I was leaving for the race, Liza Howard had done an I Run Far write-up about running with the bears. And I might be mistaken, but I thought I read in there that she said that the bear bell is very quiet and doesn't tend to scare the bell or the bears. So I went in and I just said, I'm just going to talk to myself. I talk to myself in hundreds anyway. I sing and yell and do everything else. So the time I was alone, the first 41 miles before I picked up my pacer, I would just be running through the trails. I'm like, hey, Mr. Bear, I'm here. Don't want to alarm you. Let's not get scared. I'm coming around the corner. So
I wish you just had like,
well, whatever makes me feel better.
I wish you had audio recording.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'm sure your pacer's can attest to this too. My first run on the North Shore in Vancouver was what you just described. And I remember going back in my head going, why was I singing? I am singing. Listen to me sing. Like, why is that what's coming out of my mouth? You know? So I imagine it was very similar.
Well, it was funny. My pacers all kept trying to calm my nerves and kept telling me, look, we're not going to worry about the bears. The bears aren't going to be out there. They're afraid of people anyway. But it was funny because when I picked up David to pace me, we would be running, and every couple of minutes I'd hear, yep, yep, yep. And I'm like, what are you doing, David? He goes, I'm just letting the bears know we're here. And I'm thinking, maybe I got into your head too. Yeah. But it was pretty, I think it was most comical when he was doing that, and we came up on Adam Huey, and Adam and I had ran in the beginning of the race for probably an hour or so, and he was having somewhat of a low spot, and then later in the race he came up to me and I was having a really low spot, and David was doing that, and it was just silence for about 3 minutes, and I go, Adam, he's protecting us. And he goes,
That's
oh,
awesome.
Is that what that is?
He's helping. Yeah, Adam Huey also, I think he was on the show a while back too. Great guy. Was also in charge of all the soups at Cascade Crest, my first 100. And if you watch that video, I remember eating soup and going, this is the best soup in the world. It's Adam Huey's soup. He's incredible. Really nice dude.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful person.
So yeah, let's get back to expectations. Was the race more difficult? Was it challenging in the early stages? How were you feeling those first like 30, 40 miles?
The race is breathtaking. I knew it would be breathtaking. As far as, meeting my expectations, I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that it was going to be beautiful. I knew it was going to be vast. I knew there was going to be a lot of climbing. I didn't know how the terrain was going to change. I saw pictures of rocky technical sections, and then I saw pictures of smooth rolling downhill sections and smooth, steep sections. So I don't feel like that surprised me so much. And I get very excited for those kinds of races because I feel like it plays to my skill set. I don't feel like I'm a fast, flat runner. I feel like I'm that dig deep, pure grit, get dirty, keep going, don't stop runner. And that's more why I have success than, I mean, I'm not going to say I don't have talent. I think that would be foolish, but I work really hard. My skill set is mostly my stubborn will, I think, more than my natural running talent. So I like going into a course like that, and FatDog didn't disappoint. And I like that because it makes me work, and then it makes me suffer, and then that suffering is what brings about all of those lessons and deep thinking and that type of stuff. So going into FatDog, I was really excited throughout the course when I was seeing all of the terrain and how beautiful it was. It was a constant, oh my gosh, look at this tree cover. Oh my gosh, how soft this ground is. Oh wow, look at these open meadows. This is kind of like hard rock, but I don't have the feeling like I'm gonna fall off and die. This is even better. So it was that kind of thing. But I can say what did sort of surprise me is the placement of the hills and their steepness just really that's what made the course the toughest part. Yeah, the toughest.
Were the climbs just really steep, like no switchback style, or how did that lay out?
Yeah, no, and they were pretty short, especially towards the end when they talk about the false summits, but yeah, no switchbacks. They were short, but they were just straight up.
Wow.
And you just keep climbing, and then you'd hit a ridge, and then you're just climbing up. And it was only, I think it only went up to like 7,800 feet.
Yeah.
But boy, it felt like you were climbing a lot higher than that.
Now, did you have many low spots early on in the race? I know that these aid stations are remote. There are some pretty big gaps between some of them. There's no signal, right? You can't get any of your cell signal out there or anything. So did that play into those early miles, those 40 first miles?
Yeah, and that, going back to your question about my expectations and what surprised me, is I read how long the sections were without aid, and I was a little concerned, but then being out there, it contributed to low spots for me. And it contributed, I think, more as the race grew on, or as the race went on. I maintained okay when I was on my own up until mile 41. And then I think the race starting at 10, I fell low on caffeine. And then the long stretches with the aid stations really led to my lowest points. And that was from mile 41 to mile 80. I mean, well, I won't say 41. I'll say I had a few good miles with David before I just took him through the ringer.
I like that you like to see the miles with David were the worst. These were the worst miles.
But I have to say, it wasn't David, it was me. So I think I even remember, it wasn't quite mile 41, it was probably like mile 55 or so. I go, well, David, it started off good, started off promising. So he spent a lot of time and effort trying to pull me out of a dark funk, because for me, what happened was it's dark. You start getting fatigued, because no matter how hard I try anyway, a race that starts at 10, you're still waking up at 7. I mean, it's hard to sleep till 9 or 8, even if that's not something that you ever do. So you're still up for a longer period of time. And we'd hit the aid stations, and a couple of them didn't have coffee or didn't have Coke, and I didn't have enough caffeine. And then, so I mean, you totally understand, because it's all remote and they hike everything in, and they had an excellent aid station and it was everything they need. But when you're sitting there and you're flagging, and you know now your next hope is 13 miles away, you feel a little defeated when you realize how long that's going to take you to get there during a low spell. So that was a lot of what happened to me. And then when I hit low spells, you know, I'll still do what my pacer tells. Like David was like, we need to run this and we need to power hike this, and I'll still do it. But I shut down and I go inside and I start becoming self-defeating. So all of my low points happened there.
He's actually in the chat room right now. I think he must have taken over Nathan's laptop or something.
Was Nathan not doing it right?
Yeah, Nathan also had a comment in here too, asking about how they got the aid stations out there because they're remote. And I just know they have to hike it out. They have to hike out all the stuff. There's
and that water,
yeah,
a lot of water.
I think they said like something like 600 kilograms of stuff they had to carry at one aid station. I forget what the number was. It's Canadian. It's a different measurement. But David Villalobos is saying Angela's a crybaby. A crybaby is what he is saying. I know that he's probably just giving you a dig, but
well, I know at one point, you know, when we were at the race briefing afterwards, we went to dinner and we saw the race director wearing the race shirt that says "Suck it up, whiny baby," and and Aubin on my crew, she was my crew chief, and she wrote some Facebook post and she's like, we know Ange is not a whiny baby. And so at one point out there with David, I hit all-time low and I go, I am a whiny baby. I am. I'm sure that's what he's thinking of too. I whined a lot.
If David is watching, which I know he is, he's probably like, what can I say? If you want to go into the room with Angela, if you have a story from pacing Angela, we would love to hear it, obviously. And I know people in the chat room have some questions. Kim, go for it.
Yeah, you're talking about getting into your lows and your dark spots. There's a question from Jay Morris in the chat room. Question for Angela. What's the thing you do most to get out of your dark spots?
For me, my dark spots are usually negative thoughts and nutrition. So those are my biggest issues that I have. I'll stop eating and drinking, and then I start feeling like I'm not doing good and I can't do well, and I overshot my goals. I'm not as good as I thought, and I think in situations like that, I really rely heavily on my pacers, and it goes back to what I was saying before, why I continue to run hundreds to try and master that and be able to pull myself out of that. At times, I recognize it, and I'll replace those negative thoughts with positive ones, like, no, you've come this far. No, look where you're at, how you're doing, one step at a time, and on all of those mantras. But in hundreds, I like having pacers giving me encouragement when I don't have it for myself.
It's funny. I mean, we have every ultra runner that's been on the show has talked about low points and stuff like that, and how they try to get out of it. And it's always tough, and it's always kind of in that moment when you're in that low point, you're like, there's no way to get out of this.
Right.
This is the lowest I've ever felt. This is rock bottom. I don't know how I'm even moving forward. So it's always interesting to try to go back and go, well, how did I get out of that? You usually just kind of, you end up out of it. And I think,
right.
Do you have that mantra, or did you tell yourself, this is obviously a low point, it will get better? Do you ever just use that formula of like, it always, what is it? It always never gets better, or it always gets better, or something like that?
I think Scott, one of the things Scott Mills always says is, if you're having a low point, don't wait, or don't worry, it'll pass. If you're having a high point, don't worry, it'll pass too.
Right. Right.
So I definitely hear that in the back of my mind, but it takes you a while to get there. It takes you a while to go, no, it is going to pass. For the most part, I think that it just does pass, and you're happy it passed.
Yeah.
Because you're going through it and you're going, maybe it'll get better when it's light. Maybe it'll get better when I have some more food. I'm just going to keep pushing forward. But I don't think that I'm ever exactly aware of, whoa, that just got better.
Yeah.
You know, I think you just come out of it and something worked, or a combination of all of them worked, and you're just grateful and you roll with it. Yeah.
David I always say Villalobos because of the double L, but I believe it's Villalobos. I don't want to mispronounce it, David. I know I want to pronounce it Villalobos just for solidarity, but he's in the kitchen and he's saying, I would come in there, but I don't have headphones, and I hate, because he listens to the podcast and he hates hearing the feedback from guests that don't use headphones with a microphone.
But
so I totally
have
understand.
One of these earbuds.
That's what I'm saying, David. If you want to go use one of Ange's headphones, you can do that. And then Nathan says she uses earbuds that wrap around your ear, so maybe he doesn't want to share ear space with you. I don't know.
I think there's a lot happening in my kitchen right now.
And the live chat is actually jealous. The live audience is like, why weren't we invited?
Is in there.
You have an incredible crew in the kitchen. Some fantastic San Diego ultra runners are in there celebrating, and we're taking Angela away from the celebration because this is the best part of the story, I can imagine. Did you know at all what place you were in? Were you focused on that at all? Did you have a game plan? And at what point did things begin to click around? There were wonderful Facebook posts about how when things turned around for you, you began to seek blood, like you were hunting. I think is one of the words that they were using. So yeah, when was that point for you?
The point where it all turned around was mile 80, when it got lighter and I stopped. It was a long crew stop for me, and they made me eat. You know, I was sitting on the chair, and David brought me in, and they're like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "I'm not feeling good. I don't know how am I going to do 40 more miles of this?" And then David's like, "She's not eating. She's not eating enough. She's not drinking enough." And they go, "Well, do you want some Coke? No. Do you want some quesadilla? No. Do you want some goo? Oh, no. And like you said, I was being a whiny baby. And then my feet were wet, and it's like once you hit that spiral from nutrition deficit, you just spiral. Everything is a problem. And so they started by just changing my socks and shoes, and then just bringing me stuff. Here, eat this. Here, eat that. And the good thing about me as a runner is I'll listen to my crew. Like, if you ask me if I want it, I'm going to tell you no. If you ask me if I want to run, if I want to work harder, no, not really. But if you say do this now, I'll do it, because I take a lot. I carefully pick my crew and pacers, because I give them a lot of ownership in my race. It's the way that I run. I pick them because I trust them, and I'm okay being vulnerable around them, and I believe that they see what I don't see when I'm in it. And so if they tell me to do something, I do it. And that's when it all turned around. And so when I came into that aid station, I believe I was 50 minutes behind Tara. And up until that point, I had known it. Tara passed me, I think, somewhere around mile 20 to take the lead. And then there was another woman, I believe from New Zealand, Jean, I think was her name. She had passed me. And so I only knew I was third because of hikers and other passersby. It's not something you ever really want to know, and it's so early in the race that you don't really care. At least I don't. But people like to be part of the race, I think, sometimes on the trails and stuff, and let you know that. So I was unfortunately aware of exactly where I was. And then when I hit my low point, I had no idea where either of the girls had gone. I knew Tara was ahead of me. I didn't know if I had passed Jean or she was in an aid station. I didn't ask. It seemed irrelevant at the time. But mile 80, I did ask, because I was at a very low point, and they told me she was 50 minutes ahead of me. And then
5-0.
5-0.
Yeah.
And I asked how she looked, and they said she's really excited. She's having fun. And I wasn't, and I knew that. And so it played a little bit in my head. But then again, with like the counterbalance of the thoughts, I had talked to Tara earlier when we were running, and I knew that she had never finished 100 before. And she told me she had attempted Cascade last year, and she made it to mile 80. She said she was a little undertrained. And then she said that this year she's been training crazy for this race. So does that equate to overtraining? Who knows?
Yeah.
There's so many, again, unknown factors. Is she a strong hill climber? I wasn't sure. It didn't seem like it. And she had mentioned that she didn't feel as strong on the uphills, but I was watching her descend, and she was an amazing descender. And she was a very, she had great flow and stride as a runner. It was a pretty thing to watch. I mean, I feel like a kid in a candle store when, by comparison. So when I left that aid station, I was just like, okay, I just need to get myself together and do what I can when I can. And so we left there, and all of the food started processing, and I left with my pacer, and it was a 12-mile section. And by the time I came in to the next aid station and picked up Jenny at mile 90 or 92 at this point, I had closed time on her already. And I believe she was now only 38 minutes ahead of me. And I wasn't trying to do anything. So I felt encouraged by that, and then made quicker time at the aid station. And all through even these low spells, my legs weren't hurting. I could still climb. I could still descend. I still felt strong. It was mostly mental and, again, calories. So once I started getting all of that back together, I started gaining momentum in the other direction. And that kind of parallels, just like I've mentioned to people with my weight loss. You know, you can spiral up or spiral down. Everything just starts building on each other. And so finally I was headed in the positive direction. And I was very excited when I knew that we had closed time on her without trying, and I was at mile 90. And then we did, I don't know, the next loop that I did with Jenny was 9 miles, and we came into Skyline. And when I got to Skyline, I was feeling good. And my crew chief said she left 17 minutes ago. And I knew now the race starts. And now I felt good. And so that's when I was ready for sure.
And what's incredible is Tara Berry's a fantastic runner. Mm-hmm. You both are fantastic runners. And to know that a race, super kind. To know that a race like this, it's 122 miles with 29, nearly 29, actually over 29,000 feet of gain. To know that this race is now coming down to these last few miles, you essentially had one major climb left and then a bomber descent, right? Was it like one major climb or a couple climbs?
It was one major climb and then some false summits and then the descent. So when we left Skyline and we were on the climb, the switchbacks up to the mile 110 aid station, we caught sight of Tara and her pacer before, I think, maybe 3 switchbacks before the top. And when we caught sight of her, she was walking and she was moving in a way that suggested she's tired and not feeling well. And I was on fire, ready to push. I mean, I had I was on the hunt at that point for sure, and I was ready to get up there and see what I could do. And so I caught her on the final switchback right before we got to the aid station. And then out of that aid station, I made quick time, and there was so much climbing, and I just pushed and kept it honest with myself and hoped that she was still not feeling that great on the climbs, because I still had it in the back of my mind that she's moving great downhill, and I wasn't sure. And I knew we had that long descent to the finish, but I was hoping that I was closing time on her with all of the false climbs after that mile 110 aid station.
And you ended up putting about an hour on her, which this is what's incredible. Crazy. Not only recouping the hour that Angela was behind Tara, but then adding an hour in such a short amount of time at the top of the last climb, switchbacks, and the descent to the finish line. Angela, with a time of 31:33:01, you won the FatDog 120, adding just under an hour to second place. It's incredible and deserves the biggest of round of applause. And congratulations. And and cheers. I'm drinking this. Kim's drinking this. Cheers to all.
Grapefruit Sculpin.
There was a question in the chat room about what you were drinking tonight, Angela.
Yeah.
Ballast Point Grapefruit Sculpin.
So good. So good. And there's also a request in the chat room to go to the kitchen and introduce the crew and everyone like that. I don't know if you're mobile.
Oh, okay.
Or bring people.
Bring people in mobile. Or anything like that. If you're mobile, because I know that you have such an amazing crew. Let's shout out your crew. Who is there helping you? Because this is an international affair.
My crew is not all here, but my crew is my trainer, my strength training coach, Aubin Grant, and my friend Matt Davis, and then David. Oh, Matt's here, and then David Villalobos, and then I just have my family. We have Scotty. So here's the square, guys.
Yay!
We have Scotty and David and Matt and Tracy.
I love it. They're watching.
Did you see everybody?
That's awesome.
Good show, man.
That's
I know
great.
they all want to see you. So. And there's Nathan.
There's Nathan. Oh, poor Nathan. Poor Nathan.
So,
Awesome, awesome. Well, congratulations, Angela. It's such an. You can probably go back now. You can probably go back to the room. Because otherwise it's going to echo. I think the audio is going to begin to
and
echo.
that'll make David really mad.
Yeah. But honestly, huge congratulations, Angela. It was awesome to follow from afar. I know there's not many updates that were able to come through from this race, but man, it was pretty damn awesome.
When they say remote, they're not kidding.
They're not kidding. We have friends that also ran this weekend. Linda Barton Robbins, who's Gary Robbins' wife. She's been on the show before. Fantastic woman. Finished in 43 hours.
Yep.
Like,
huge congrats to Linda.
huge congrats. It's
So happy for
such
her.
a brutal race. Yeah, it was so fun to follow.
It is.
Big congrats to the male champion, John Burton. Also did a fantastic job
He was
out
strong
there
all day.
And for anyone that towed the line, because this race is
For
no
any
joke.
of the distances.
For
too,
any of the distances, because it's 120, 90, 70, 40. There's a lot of races, plus a relay, plus a
It's a lot
9-leg
that
relay.
they juggle, and they have amazing organization. I couldn't say enough about the course markings because I'm a person who gets very nervous. I feel like if there's a chance to get lost, I can do it. And every section you'd come around a corner, there'd be a confidence ribbon. You'd hit the night would fall, and the reflectors were perfect. I never felt like I wasn't sure if I was going the right way. So,
Great.
I mean, hats off to them. And the people who brought in all of the supplies for those remote aid stations. I mean, it's life-saving. So, but
amazing.
it's definitely a race that pushes you, and you have to be self-sufficient, and you're going to find out what you're made of, and you're going to hit some dark spots.
What is next for you? I know that Jameel Curry in the chat room wants to know if you're going to come back to Mogollon next year.
It's definitely something that I want to do, and I talked to him about doing it. It's probably the highest on my list under Hard Rock. So
nice.
if I get passed over from Hard Rock again, then I'll most likely be out at Mogollon for sure.
Awesome.
And then this fall, I'm going to go up and do Quad Dipsy.
Nice. Fantastic. That's one of those that I've always wanted to do as well.
Yeah, seems fun.
Nathan, your son, is saying, shout out to my sister Madison, who doesn't want to join the chat. I love it. It's becoming a family affair.
Yeah,
it is.
So we're taking Maddie up to Chico. So tomorrow we drive up to Chico State to drop her off for college. She's going to start her freshman year, and so that's actually why I'm going to do Quad Dipsy. Well, I mean, I've always wanted to do Quad Dipsy, but it works out well to visit her and everything up in the fall. So
awesome. Since this is your first time on the show, again, we still have a number of live questions too. Kim has been pulling tons of questions. She's like, let's do this one. So we'll ask those briefly in the post show. I think we have a good list of them here. But one thing that we do with new guests on the show is we have a quickie question quiz. It's the same questions for each of our guests. They're very easy. I just ask them and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh boy.
So you let me know when you're ready and I'll just start going through them. There's not many.
Do I get to say pass?
You can, yeah, if you want.
No.
But I assure you, they're not that tough.
Okay, go ahead.
What was your very first race?
My very first race was ultra or race?
Running race, any race.
Oh, I can't even remember, Ethan. Oh my gosh. I'll just say ultra. It was Ridgecrest.
Ridgecrest. What's your favorite running movie?
Oh, I don't have a favorite running movie.
Trails or road?
Trails, 100%.
Current favorite place to run?
Mission Trails and Mount Laguna.
And what would be a bucket list race right now?
A bucket list race.
You could get entry to any race.
I know, I'm just not sure. I definitely want to go to UTMB, for sure.
Good choice. What is a guilty pleasure TV show?
TV show. I watch the shows my boyfriend watches. So I guess like How I Met Your Mother, something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. What's your favorite pre-race meal? I know you said Indian food, and I think that's awesome. But do you have like a favorite go-to pre-race meal?
I just have a favorite go-to food, and it's pizza.
Nice.
Us too.
Yeah, us too. Favorite post-race indulgence?
Whiskey and ice cream and cake.
Is it chocolate and peanut butter ice cream? Nathan called it out earlier.
Because I came home and I ate like a quart of it.
That's so great. And finally, your current running kicks. People always like to know what your running shoes are right now.
I switch up between the Ultra Lone Peak 3.0s and the Superiors.
That's it.
3.0. Yep.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Angela Shartel, first time on the show and fantastic weekend winning FatDog 120. Super inspiring. She's got a fantastic story. I had a blast on tonight's episode. Angela, you were fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.
And I know that you traveled today, and I'm sure you're a bit sleep deprived from this weekend. So I especially thank you and your family and your crew for letting us take you away from everything here for
no problem. My pleasure.
And if you've got a couple minutes, we have some audience questions that we can ask in the post show.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
So stick around for just a second. And also remind people where they can find you on social media in case they have questions that they want to ask down the road.
I have Facebook page is Ange Shartel, and then Instagram is Angela Shartel, and Twitter is also Angela Shartel.
Awesome. So you know the drill. Those who are watching live or even the archive version, go follow Angela, shout her out. Thank her for being on the show. And if you have any further questions after we get through the post show, shoot her some texts or shoot her a text.
Here's her phone number.
Go to her address and knock on her door. Shoot her a tweet. Cool. So we're going to move into the post show. But before we do that, of course, an announcement. I told you at the beginning of the show, I baited you guys, a little carrot. This is exciting for me. I'm also like really nervous about it, but I'm really excited. I am announcing the first official, inaugural, inaugural, such a weird word.
Weird.
It is weird. The Ginger Runner virtual race. This will be, more details will come in the coming days. This is just the announcement. It is a race that everyone around the globe can run. It will be on a specific day in November, and there's going to be lots of awesome things. The swag is ridiculous. I'm so excited. I've already gotten some pictures and stuff of some of the samples, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so rad. Registration opens this Friday, and it will be open for a couple of weeks. It is open to everybody, all ages, all abilities. There are awards for all abilities, so it's not like you got to be the fastest or any of that kind of stuff. It's going to be, there will be awards for that, but there will also be awards for other things. So everyone can win really cool stuff. There'll be prizes. I'm so excited. So get pumped, get excited. This is the first time that we've been able to share, hopefully, the running with the rest of the community around the globe, because this really is a global thing. We had people from Venezuela watching tonight, Australia. It's crazy. And we have a huge demographic in Eastern Europe, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah.
So this will be the first opportunity that we have to maybe on one day all run one race together across the globe. So this is very exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, get pumped, everybody. The Ginger Runner Virtual Race, GRVR, is what we're going to be calling it. This is the first annual GRVR. Registration will be open, end of the week.
Friday.
That's crazy. It's crazy to say it. It's awesome. So that's the announcement. Stick around for the post show. We've got a little bit more with Ange, and thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Next week, we have Billy Simpson, a legend in ultra running, just finished the Long Trail, Colorado Trail, John Muir Trail, all within 2 months. Can't wait to talk to him about his adventure and hear some of the stories from Billy Simpson, an absolute legend in the sport. So stick around. Here we go with more Angela Shartel.
Ginger Runner.
Awesome. Angela, we've got great questions from the live audience. Go ahead, babe. Let's start with them.
Sure. Question from Mad Runner. Angela, do you have a coach or trainer that you work with?
Good question.
I do not have a running coach, but I do have a strength training coach, and I post a lot of the workouts and pictures on my Facebook page and Instagram page, and her name is Aubin Grant, and her business is Aubin Grant Fitness.
Nice.
Question from Chuck Hall. What gear is mandatory for this race? If you know.
Yeah. There's probably a good list on the
yeah,
website.
you could go on the website for sure. But
is there anything
standard.
like abnormal?
No, I wouldn't say that there's anything abnormal about it. It's just tights, hat, gloves, whistle, extra socks, disposable cups, stuff like that. Flashlights, several. Too.
Did they give you any sort of like pre-race briefing regarding like the weather from last year and any like? Did they have any warnings or anything like that?
No, I mean, you follow the weather, and I knew it was supposed to be mid-80s there, so it was going to be more of a heat year. But it's the mountains, and things can change. So they just gave an example of the years and how the weather has been over the past years, and used that to justify why they have the mandatory gear list. And it was a heavy pack to carry, and it was a lot of gear, but I have to say, if I was out there in the mountains and I needed it, I would sure be glad I had it. So
yeah,
for sure. A stronger core.
That's it.
Just work your core.
Yeah, work your core.
I have to say, my back doesn't hurt, my abs don't hurt, but I did chafe a little bit. And that was mostly the wetness and sweat and hours. So
awesome. Good. What do we got?
A question from Mike Harris in the chat room. Angela, how did it feel finishing third overall, only 3 minutes behind Carl Meltzer at the Cruel Jewel 100?
Yeah, and Carl Meltzer set the course record that year.
He did.
What was that experience like?
Cruel Jewel was really a really exciting race. And same thing. I had about a 12-mile low spot there. Scott Mills was my pacer at that time, and I was probably a whiny baby there too. But finishing third was great. Finishing first was great. But honestly, finishing is awesome. You're happy to be done. I mean, when you start a race, that's usually just the number one goal. I hope I make it to the finish and can transition and work through all of the variables. And so Cruel Jewel was another really great event.
Awesome. That's a good one here.
Question from Mad Runner. What was your fuel of choice during FatDog and night prior, which you kind of already talked about?
Right. Well, I use Carbo Pro. I use Carbo Pro Nutrition. So I was using Carbo Pro and Hydro C, and then I supplement with solid food. So I'd eat Stinger waffles and chews, and then I'd eat at the aid stations the quesadillas and avocado, turkey, tortilla wraps, stuff like that.
So real food, Carbo Pro.
Food, yeah, and fruit.
Awesome.
So Carbo Pro is the main fuel that I use.
And how long are you expecting recovery to be for something like this?
I'm going to definitely take a week off of running just because we're going to be traveling and taking my daughter to college. But I see people get out there really, really quick, and I would expect to want to run in about a week. But I was, as you guys know, Scott Mills, I call him PB, he's my Papa Bear. He always says a day per mile, and for me it holds true. And I'll be out there, and I'll be happy to be on the run and socializing and having the relationships and the connections out there. But then around 10 miles or 12 miles, I'm like, I'm really tired, and he'll always remind me, what day is it again? How many days has it been since your race? Oh yeah, that's right, it's only 30 days. So you're going to feel this way for about 60 more days. So for me, it definitely takes that day per mile.
I mean, and this is advice from Scotty Mills. This guy has run more ultras than you can count. Absolute legend in the sport. Knows what he's talking about. Knows exactly what he's talking about. This is a good question from Jesse. Go ahead, babe.
Question from Jesse in the chat room. Angela, funniest moment in a race?
Ooh. I feel like my pacers should ask that. I don't even know a funny moment in a race. I have such a bad memory of that, of like just different little stories that happen. They all flow together. The biggest thing that stands out for me is not a funny moment, but a scary moment when we were leaving Newcomb in AC, and I had my pacer Tracy with me, and a black bear came up on the trail, and that freaked me out. I mean, it might have been funny for my crew when we told them, but for me, it scared me half to death.
That's great. I'm sure that the Pacers have funny stories about Angela. So
they remember everything.
Yeah, exactly. We're asking someone who's sleep deprived. Everything blurs together, I imagine. There's just this big kind of long experience as opposed to, oh, this thing happened and this thing happened.
Especially now.
Yeah,
Right now.
31 and a half hours straight, plus probably little sleep the night before, plus probably little sleep the night after, and you're probably
several days of traveling.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely takes its toll on the body. So, Angela, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ange.
Relax, enjoy your friends and family out there.
Okay.
Have a shot of whiskey for us. You're fantastic, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much. You guys were great.
You got it, Angela. Awesome.
All right. Bye-bye.
We'll see you later. Awesome to have Angela on the show. She's just fantastic. Again, thank you everyone for watching live tonight. I really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next Monday. There were some questions about the GRVR in the chat room, and they will all be answered this week, but just briefly, it will not be a distance event. It will be a time event. So it will be a duration of time that you will run, and you will track it, and we will be able to collect all those files, and based off of certain criteria, some might win awards and that sort of thing. That way, I felt like, oh, we could do a distance, but I'd rather do a set time, and see what people can do in a period of time. It's going to kind of be different than what most virtual races are. It's not going to be a set distance. It'll be a set time. So everyone's distance will be different. Everyone's ability will be different. But that's the whole point of it. So yeah, more details shall be unveiled this week, very soon. And I don't know what all the nipple ring talk was. I don't know why people were like, "Why? Where's Ethan?"
They're talking about your iPhone. Did something happen in your live stream with the?
Well, it has a suction cup on it with a ring on the end to help you pull the. By the way, I fixed my own iPhone tonight. I did a live stream of it. The iPhone is completely fixed. I did it all myself, which is pretty cool. Thanks, babe.
Congratulations.
Thanks, wife. I love you. You're fantastic. But yeah, I don't know where the nipple ring stuff come from. Sorry, gentlemen that wanted to know so desperately that they would bombard the chat room with nipple ring talk. I don't mean to let you down. There was a lot of it, and maybe you guys should ask yourself, why was there so much? So that being said, thank you guys. We'll see you next Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for more Ginger Runner Live. Thank you.
Thanks for having me again.
You're welcome. Your smile is also very creepy. Oh, I want to give a shout out to Kristen Winger, a regular viewer of the show, also a Patreon supporter, ran her first ultra this weekend and crushed it. Why are you looking at me?
Oh, because also another Patreon supporter of yours also ran FatDog 120. Nicholas.
Yeah, Nicholas Combs.
Yep.
And crushed it as well. There's a great photo of him just passed out in a mummy bag like after the race. So congratulations to Nicholas Combs and Kristen Winger, who jumps in the chat room. She may be here tonight. She may be sleeping because it's an ultra.
Hopefully
so
she's still celebrating.
Hopefully she's still celebrating. I think that's awesome. So if you, as a community or a live viewer, have a race coming up or anything like that, that's what this live chat is also great for. You can meet other people, and we get to be aware of races and stuff that you guys are training for and then accomplishing. It's really, really awesome. And of course, if you would like to help keep, how do we sign up for Patreon? Just getting that to Chuck. Also, hi, Chuck. If you guys would like to help keep the lights on and the mics hot here, we have a table currently and chairs. We got Kim a chair. This is all provided by our Patreon supporters. This whole YouTube channel cannot exist without the Patreon supporters. So it's patreon.com/thegingerrunner, and all the details are there on how you can support for as little as $1 a month. It's like Kickstarter, but every month. So for $1 a month, you can stay as long as you want. There's no commitment, so you can do a month and just leave. But there's different levels with different tiers of benefits and stuff. If you guys go watch the most recent movie that I just dropped on Friday, Racing the Darkness, which is Sage Canada's Western States 100 experience, I tried to do a whole bunch of new creative stuff. I was kind of like, I want to do something different because I feel like there's a lot of trail running films that are all the same. So I wanted to do something different and created that. And that whole video would not have been possible without the support from Patreon supporters. It allowed for travel. It allowed for the time to be able to edit it and effects and all that stuff. So that movie just wouldn't have been possible without the Patreon supporters. That's why right at the very beginning, I say thank you. So if you would like to join, if you have not already, go check it out. I hate plugging it because it feels like PBS or something, but it kind of is. This channel is supported by the viewers. So if you're new here, check it out. Otherwise, stick around for a while. All the content will be free. We'll see you guys next Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific for more Ginger Runner Live. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wait. Someone says the PCT FKT. I didn't know the PCT FKT was made this weekend. So if the PCT FKT was made, that's awesome. I will have to find out by who and how. So maybe we can get them on the show. I don't know if it's a male or female. GR, an FKT of 52 days, 8 hours, 28 minutes for the entire PCT and not a word. Hey, Maria, chill out.
The show was about Ange.
Yeah, as much as I'm aware of what's going on in the ultra world. There's a lot besides the PCT FKT, just so you know. There's lots of people that did lots of things this weekend. By no means is this a dig on that individual who I do not know and do not know the facts. So please settle down. We'll make sure we do the research before we just say congratulations and stuff like that. So I will figure out who it is that did that, and maybe we can get him on the show.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Regardless, next week, Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Bye.